I had been married for quite some time, yet I realized I didn't truly know my wife. Maybe that was my fault for not putting in more effort. On the surface, we seemed to get along fine, but there was no deep connection between us. I never thought of her as my soulmate, and I suspected the feeling was mutual. Still, we were compatible enough to raise 3 teenage kids together. I worked in the claims department of a large auto insurance company, a desk job with good benefits. In 3 years, I'd be eligible for retirement. We owned a home, though its market value was now less than what we owed on the mortgage. Noreen was a good wife in many ways. She stayed home to raise our kids and made sure the house was always spotless. Clothes were washed and pressed, meals cooked to perfection. I suppose all that housework kept her fit because she still had the same great figure she'd had in high school when we first met. Neither of us had been particularly ambitious about school. We got married a year after I started working, mostly because Noreen wanted to get away from her parents and I wanted regular sex. We were comfortable together, which seemed like enough at the time, but there was never any fiery, passionate romance between us. No fairy tale love story. The sex was always good, or so I thought. Up until recently, I believed we didn't have any problems, especially in that department. Turns out I was wrong. It started at one of those dreaded company parties. I don't dance, but Noreen loves to, so I let her enjoy herself while I spent the night sitting with a few other spouses who also weren't on the dance floor. The singles danced, the married folks mingled, and Noreen danced more than I thought necessary with Dirk Franklin. Dirk was a good dancer, sure, but he was also a notorious womanizer. A couple of times during the evening, I lost sight of Noreen for a few minutes. She always came back, though, and I told myself it wasn't a big deal. These parties weren't fun for me, but I saw them as a small sacrifice to let her unwind. The best part of those nights was always the sex when we got home. A little drinking loosened her up, and it made enduring the party worth it. That night was especially enjoyable, but then Monday morning came and everything fell apart. At first, the day seemed normal. Then I noticed a few co-workers glancing in my direction, whispering and laughing. Dirk was holding court, casually chatting about some new conquest. Twice he looked at me and smirked, or maybe sneered. Dirk and I weren't close. I didn't like the guy, and I sure as hell didn't like whatever game he was playing. Just before lunch, I cornered Barry, one of the co-workers I trusted most, in the copy room. "Barry, what the hell is going on with Dirk?" I demanded. "If that smug bastard smirks at me one more time, I'm going to knock his teeth out." Barry hesitated before answering. "I don't know if it's true or not, John, but he's been bragging about sleeping with Noreen on Saturday night." "That's bullshit." I snapped. Noreen would never go near him. "I thought so, too," Barry said uneasily. "But he's been showing off a pair of panties he claims are hers. He's letting people see them, even smell them. I don't know how he got his hands on them, but it's what he's saying." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. How could he have her underwear? It didn't make any sense. "John, he says she gave them to him after they hooked up in one of the meeting rooms at the hotel," Barry said cautiously. "Did you see them?" "Yeah," Barry nodded. "They were silk, silver, or gray." "Thanks, Barry. Don't say anything to anyone about this. I owe you one." If Barry had told me the underwear were red or black, I might have laughed it off. But I'd been there when Noreen got ready for the party. She wore her favorite silver silk lingerie set, the one I'd given her for Valentine's Day, just this year. About 20 minutes later, I saw Dirk heading to the men's room after drinking too much coffee. I followed him, my mind a storm of anger and uncertainty. I don't enjoy confrontations, and there was no way I could just ask Dirk face-to-face to stop spreading lies about my wife. A part of me wasn't even sure they were lies. I knew I couldn't let on that I was onto him. A direct confrontation might warn him. The simplest way to handle this was with my fists. When he finished at the urinal and turned around, I punched him square in the nose. Something cracked loudly and blood spattered onto my shirt. Annoyed, I hit him again, Dirk doubled over, clutching his face, offering no resistance. I searched his pocket and found the silk panties, then kicked him twice in the groin for good measure. He gasped, wheezing as I left the restroom. By the time I returned to my desk after an early lunch, I'd already been fired. Dirk had been taken to the hospital, and the company wasted no time processing my termination. That afternoon, I was at the kitchen table when Noreen came home from grocery shopping. She carried in a few bags, her expression bright until she noticed me. "Hey, honey, what are you doing home so early? Are you sick?" she asked, setting the bags on the counter. I didn't answer. "Want to help me bring in the rest of the groceries?" she asked, heading back to the car. I stayed silent. When she returned with more bags, she paused, sensing something was wrong. "John, what's going on? Why are you home?" "I got fired," I said flatly. Her face twisted in confusion. "What? That doesn't make sense. Why would they fire you?" I stared at her, unsure how to start. Finally, I reached into my pocket and tossed the silver panties onto the table. Her face went pale. "Oh, God, no." She grabbed her head with both hands. "No, no, no. This can't be happening." Tears streamed down her face as she began to cry. Not a wail, but a soft, broken sob. "Can you explain this to me?" I asked. Her crying intensified. She buried her face in her hands, mumbling no over and over again. I waited patiently as she tried to compose herself, wiping her tears before looking up at me. "I'm so sorry, John. It was a mistake. I drank too much, and I made a terrible mistake. Don't give me that crap. You weren't that drunk. You knew exactly what you were doing, didn't you?" "No, John. You have to believe me. It was just a mistake, a horrible mistake. There's nothing going on between me and Dirk. I swear. If it was a mistake, why didn't you tell me when it happened? I didn't want you to find out. I didn't want to hurt you. If you didn't want me to find out, why'd you do it with the biggest loudmouth in the company?" "He promised he wouldn't tell anyone," she whispered. "Are you really that naive? He told everyone. Hell, he even passed around your underwear like a trophy." "I didn't let him take them," she snapped. "I gave them to him so he could get rid of them. I couldn't wear them again." "You gave him a $30 pair of underwear to clean up after yourself." "I'm sorry, John. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "You mean you didn't intend for me to find out, or you didn't intend to cheat on me?" "Both," she cried. "I messed up, John. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? That I regret it? I do. But I can't take it back." "Why, Noreen? Just tell me why. And don't feed me some nonsense about being drunk." "I wasn't that drunk," she admitted. "Dirk and I were just having a good time. He's charming funny. He knows what to say to make a girl feel special. So you just wandered into an empty meeting room and what? Had a romantic romp." "No, John," she said quietly. "It wasn't romantic. I don't want to talk about it. You didn't seem to have a problem talking about it with Dirk, did you? And then you came home and used me to clean up the mess." "It's not like that," she protested. "It didn't mean anything. It was just a mistake." "A mistake?" I scoffed. "I lost my job, my pension, and now my family because of your mistake. It might have meant nothing to you, but it meant everything to me." Noreen sat silently, tears streaming down her face as I stood up. "I need to go," I said. "The police will probably come soon, and I don't want to be here when they do." "The police?" she asked, panicked. "What did you do?" "I gave your boyfriend back his little keepsake," I said bitterly. "That's why I got fired. And I'm sure Dirk's already given his statement. Hell, I might end up in jail for a while. But at least you had your fun. Where are you going? What am I supposed to do?" "I don't know, Noreen," I said, walking out the door. "I don't know." I made it clear to Noreen. She was responsible for explaining the situation to the kids. If she lied or distorted the truth, I warned her that she'd regret it. Before leaving town, I paid off and canceled all my credit cards. I had enough in my bank account to last about 6 months, and whatever she chose to do with the money was up to her. My primary concern was that she'd take proper care of the kids. School would be out for summer soon, but I wasn't sure if that would make things easier or harder for her. As for me, I had no plan for what to do once my savings ran out. Since I'd been terminated for cause, I wasn't even sure I'd qualify for unemployment benefits. The first night, I stayed at my brother's small apartment in Shillhaven. He didn't have much space, but he generously let me crash under his work desk until I could figure something out. The next day, I moved into a tiny furnished one-bedroom apartment. It was modest, but it included utilities and even cable internet. I turned my phone off after leaving the house. I didn't want to talk to anyone, though I knew I'd eventually have to reach out to the kids. Work kept me busy, though it wasn't exactly enjoyable. Robbie, my boss, ran a tree cutting and landscaping business, and my job was mainly to assist the climbers. They were skilled in their trade and taught me some tricks, but it was clear I was a novice. Still, I worked hard, using the physical labor as a distraction from my issues with Noreen. The only certainty I had was that I'd file for divorce as soon as possible. Noreen had explained the situation to the kids shortly after I left. From what I heard, she didn't sugarcoat anything. Brian, my middle child, immediately left the room and stopped speaking to her altogether. My youngest, Sarah, just sat there and cried. Only Terry, my oldest, was willing to have a conversation about the separation. Terry was graduating high school in 2 months and planning to enroll in dental assistant classes at the local college. Brian, a year younger, was set on joining the Marines after graduation. Sarah still had 2 years of high school left. She once dreamed of being a teacher, but had recently shifted her focus to wanting a family of her own. I stayed in contact with Terry, but our conversations avoided family drama. Sarah was too young to discuss these issues with, and Brian didn't want to talk about it at all. Terry told me that Noreen had started going out several nights a week after I filed for divorce, often coming home drunk. The kids did their best to avoid her, but it was taking a toll on the family. Terry assured me there was no male involvement, but the situation still weighed heavily on everyone. About a week later, things escalated. I was working alongside Josh and Jimmy, 2 climbers, helping feed cut branches into the chipper. 2 men pulled up in a Dodge truck and approached me. This wasn't unusual. People often stopped to ask about rates or services. As I handed one of them a business card, the other punched me hard in the temple. The blow was disorienting, and I hit the ground, struggling to regain consciousness. Before I could react, the men started kicking me repeatedly. Pain shot through my body with every stomp, and I could do little more than curl up and try to minimize the damage. Josh and Jimmy saw what was happening and scrambled to help. Josh, still in the tree, lowered his chainsaw by its safety rope and swung it toward the attackers. While the chainsaw wasn't running, the sheer force and weight of it hit one of the men square in the head, causing him to collapse. His friend panicked and fled, but not before Josh's improvised defense left a deep gash on his scalp. After the attackers were gone, Josh and Jimmy rushed to my side. I was in rough shape, unable to breathe properly, and feeling a sharp pain in my side. It turned out I had a broken rib. The ambulance arrived soon after, and while I initially refused a ride, I had no choice but to seek medical attention. One of the attackers was still lying on the ground when the paramedics arrived, his head a bloody mess from the chainsaw swing. Jimmy had given him a hard kick while he was down, ensuring he wouldn't be getting up anytime soon. I refused a ride in the ambulance with the man who had attacked me, so the local police ended up transporting him in the back of a patrol car. When I arrived at the hospital, Robbie was already there. The larger guy who attacked me had a deep gash on the side of his head. While his ear wasn't severed, he was in bad shape. I didn't feel much sympathy. The doctor insisted I stay overnight for observation. Meanwhile, the police apprehended the other attacker in the Dodge truck less than 10 kilometers from the scene. After a decent hospital meal, I settled in for the night, hoping for some rest. That didn't last long. Around 1 a.m., my phone rang, confused and groggy. I wondered who could possibly be calling me at this hour, especially since hardly anyone called me at all these days. Dad, it's Terry. We have a problem, and we need your help. I'm not sure I can help right now, I replied, concerned. What's going on that's so urgent you're calling in the middle of the night? Mom's in jail, and someone needs to bail her out, Terry said, her voice strained. What? What happened? She crashed her car and got arrested for a DUI. Is she okay? She's not hurt, not really, but the car's totaled. She smashed into 6 parked cars before hitting a fire hydrant. Was she alone? Yeah. I don't know much else. She's not going to be released until bail is posted. I didn't know who else to call, so I called you. Terry, there's a bit of a problem. I'm not home right now. I'm at Pottsville Memorial Hospital. I was injured at work today, and the doctor wants me to stay overnight. I'm fine, but I can't leave. Maybe you should call your Aunt Sarah. She'd probably be willing to help your mom. Wait, why are you in the hospital? What happened? I broke 2 ribs. They've got me wrapped up like a mummy. Don't worry about me, though. I just need a few days to rest. I'll be fine. Can you try to find out more about what happened with your mom? I'm curious. Okay, Terry said reluctantly. I'll call you tomorrow around lunchtime to update you. The next day, Robbie drove me back to my apartment. He stocked my freezer with microwavable meals, but refused my request for beer, bringing me Coke instead. I could move well enough to use the bathroom and feed myself, though my ribs protested every step. Unfortunately, my entertainment was limited to a marathon of Adam Sandler movies playing on TV. Shortly before dark, Terry called again. She learned that Noreen had been out drinking with some people from my former company, which struck me as odd since I didn't think she had any friends there other than Dirk. Apparently, they were having a good time when the police showed up and arrested Dirk for reasons Terry couldn't figure out. Noreen had reacted badly, drinking more than usual before closing time. Despite her state, she refused to call a cab or let anyone drive her home. Terry wasn't able to find out why Dirk had been arrested or why Noreen had become so upset. We talked for a little while longer, and Terry seemed relieved to know I was home and managing on my own. She mentioned wanting to visit me, but they didn't have a car. By then, Sarah had bailed Noreen out of jail, but Noreen still hadn't come home. Terry gave me Sarah's cell number, and I decided to call her. Sarah, it's John. What on earth is going on? Your wife's a mess, John, and it's your goddamn fault, Sarah snapped. Hold up, Sarah. How is this my fault? You left her. That's how. You left her with 3 kids and just ran off. Who do you think you are? Come on, Sarah. You know me better than that. Why would I just wake up one day, quit my job, and abandon my wife and kids? Does that make sense to you? She said you were fired and took it out on her. Did she say why I was fired? She said you beat up a guy at work because he danced with her at a company party. Sarah, she wasn't just dancing with him. She slept with him at the party. Did she mention that? There was silence on the other end of the line. No. Sarah finally replied. She didn't tell you that? Well, let me fill in the blanks. I didn't hit the guy because he danced with your sister. I hit him because he slept with her and then bragged about it to everyone at work. She even gave him her underwear as a trophy. Did she happen to mention any of that? No, Sarah said quietly. Did she say why Dirk was arrested last night? No, but she said you had something to do with it. Our conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Sarah, I have to go. I'll call you tomorrow. The man at my door was my brother-in-law, Toby, who also happened to be a police officer. Come on in, Toby. It's always nice to see family. Want a beer? Sure, Toby replied, stepping inside. I needed something cold to ease the pain. There was an ice pack tucked behind the sodas Robbie had brought me, so I grabbed it. The painkillers I'd been prescribed were strong, but they also made me nauseous. John, Toby said, walking into the room, we found the guy who put the hit on you. The two thugs he hired were more than happy to rat him out. "I believe you know him. Dirk Franklin." I froze. "Dirk? Yeah, I know him. He was messing around with Noreen." Toby nodded. "He admitted everything, which means we won't need a trial. The judge will hand down the sentence on Friday. I'm guessing he'll get 2 to 3 years, probably in the county jail." "That's good news," I replied. Toby smirked. "You're getting your revenge, aren't you, John?" "I'm hoping for a little help from some friends," I said cautiously. "Just don't drag me into anything illegal," Toby said with a laugh. "Sounds like you've got this under control. If you want to see him, he's in city jail until sentencing. I'll stop by tomorrow to check on you. By the way, how's Sally? She's still looking out for you." "It's more like the other way around," I said. The hardest part of visiting the station was getting in and out of the truck with my ribs taped up like a mummy. When I finally entered the holding area, Dirk was already smirking. "Well, look who it is," he sneered. "Did you trip over a tree branch, Mr. Esterly?" He seemed to enjoy my discomfort as I gingerly sat down. "Welcome to Hawkhill County, Dirk," I said evenly. "This is my town, and I'll make sure you enjoy your stay here." "I don't think so, John," he retorted. "I'll be out of here by Friday. Was it worth it, Dirk? Losing your job, messing with my family, was it worth it?" He leaned forward, his grin widening. "You think you're better than me? I was always better than you, and your wife agreed. She's all mine now. You can have her," I said coldly. "I hope you enjoy the baggage that comes with her." "Oh, I will. I've enjoyed her plenty since you left, right in your bed while the kids were at school. She was furious when you served her with those divorce papers. Dirk was doing everything he could to provoke me. If the judge sentenced him to state prison, it would make it harder for me to settle the score. For now, I kept my composure. Later, I went to the DA's office to discuss the case. The building was old, with no elevator, making it a challenge to navigate with my injuries. The district attorney assigned to the case was Elizabeth Vargas. She'd been the valedictorian of our high school class and went on to earn a law degree from Penn State on a full scholarship. She married her college sweetheart, an Air Force Academy graduate, but tragedy struck when he died in a car accident a decade ago. The first few minutes of our conversation were filled with polite small talk about old times. Elizabeth had always been part of the elite crowd, and I'd been a minor player. I felt out of place and awkward, searching for a way to end the conversation. "Well, it was nice catching up," I said finally. "I just wanted to say hello now that I'm back in town." Elizabeth leaned back in her chair and gave me a knowing smile. "Sit down, John. Let's skip the pleasantries. You're here about Dirk Franklin, aren't you?" I hesitated. "Yes, but seeing you here made me think it wasn't a good idea. John, I've been assigned to this case. I know what's going on. Dirk's going to jail. That much is certain. What do you want to talk about?" I sighed. "I just wanted to make sure he gets what he deserves." Elizabeth studied me for a moment. "It's funny. Usually you imagine big, tough guys seeking revenge, not people like you." Her comment stung, and I shifted uncomfortably, rubbing my fingers together and avoiding her gaze. Discussing Dirk with her felt like exposing a deep wound, and I wasn't ready to let her see how much he had hurt me. I had lost my job, my wife, and my kids because of Dirk. All I wanted was to make sure his time in jail wasn't a vacation. "Do you want him to stay in county jail or go to state prison?" Elizabeth asked. "Do I even have a choice?" She shook her head. "I can't keep him in county for more than 2 years. If I sentence him to more than that, I'll have to send him to a state facility." I smiled faintly. 2 years here should be enough. Elizabeth noted my answer and leaned back in her chair. This time, when I stood to leave, she didn't stop me. But just as I turned to go, she called after me. "John, would you mind meeting me for lunch tomorrow at Scripps around noon?" I nodded, offering her a small smile, which she returned. Lunch with Elizabeth might be interesting. After leaving the courthouse, I did some shopping. I picked up a nice shirt and a new pair of jeans, something casual but presentable. I'd gotten so used to only wearing work clothes that I realized I needed a change. I also grabbed a case of beer, deciding that, if forced to choose between painkillers and alcohol, I'd go with beer. I wasn't sure if lunch with Elizabeth would be strictly business or something more personal. It turned out to be the latter. Over the meal, Elizabeth opened up about her life after her husband's death. She had moved back to town, receiving some government benefits, but still needing a job to support herself and her son, Philip Jr., whom she affectionately called Second. The nickname came from a mutual decision between her and her late husband to avoid calling him Junior or Phil. Though we talked, I avoided sharing too much about my own troubles. My self-esteem was already low, and I didn't want to appear weak. Elizabeth, however, reassured me not to worry about Dirk's sentencing, promising he'd get what he deserved. When I returned home, I was shocked to find my 3 kids sitting on the front porch with their suitcases and duffel bags. "What on earth are you all doing here?" I asked, stunned. They didn't answer immediately, glancing at one another awkwardly. Brian, my oldest, finally broke the silence. "Uncle Robbie gave us your address," he said. "I don't see a car. How did you get here?" "Aunt Sarah drove us," Brian replied. "But she couldn't stay." I winced as I approached them, my ribs still sore. "Brian, could you help me grab the case of beer from the truck? It's too heavy for me right now." Terry helped me inside, though I didn't really need the assistance, and Brian brought the beer into the kitchen. My youngest daughter, made everyone ice cream. As we settled in, I asked the big question. "How long have you guys been here, and why did Aunt Sarah bring you?" Brian shrugged. "She said it was the best thing to do under the circumstances." When I pressed him for details, he hesitated. Finally, Terry spoke up. 2 days ago, S came home early from school and saw Mom, with some guy, in your room." I froze, trying to process what he'd just said. "That's great," I muttered sarcastically. "Just great." I turned to S, who was quietly sitting nearby. "Did you recognize the guy?" "No," she replied softly. "But I think he works with you." "What did you do, sweetheart?" I asked gently. I watched for a minute," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I've seen stuff like that online before, but it's different when it's Mom. It was disgusting. I left and went back to school. Did she even know you were there?" "No." "She had her eyes closed most of the time," S said, looking down at her hands. Out of frustration, I grabbed an empty soda can and threw it across the room. It bounced harmlessly, but the act helped release some of the anger boiling inside me. "Have you kids eaten yet?" I asked, trying to steady my voice. They shook their heads, and I turned to Terry. "How about ordering a couple of pizzas for us?" While they unpacked their bags, I called my lawyer to amend the divorce papers, adding a request for full custody. It was a bold move, but after hearing what had happened, I wasn't taking any chances. Next, I called Sarah to thank her for bringing the kids. She explained that she no longer supported Noreen in any way and believed the kids were better off with me. She even volunteered to drive them herself. Sarah had already informed Noreen where the kids were and why they'd left. When the pizzas arrived, we had an early dinner. Conversation was minimal. The kids seemed exhausted, and I couldn't blame them. Afterward, they went to bed, leaving me alone with my thoughts and a cold beer from the fridge. I discovered a new routine, beer and painkillers. The latest batch of meds wasn't as effective, but they took the edge off. I washed down a pill with a cold beer, hoping it would knock me out, and it worked. Friday arrived, and the sentences were handed down. Dirk got 1 year, to be served in the county jail. He'd probably be out in 6 months with good behavior. Normally, I'd see that as a win, but not in Dirk's case. His 2 lackeys received 6 months each, less time served. Sometimes I don't understand the justice system, but overall, I was satisfied with the outcome. Saturday was a busy day. Most of it was spent getting the kids settled. Despite bringing a ton of stuff, They each realized they'd forgotten something while packing. A midday trip to Walmart hit my wallet hard, but it was necessary. By evening, things felt as normal as they could under the circumstances. Surprisingly, no one seemed to miss Noreen. Back at home, I noticed I was running low on pain pills. Instead of worrying about it, I cracked open another beer. I wasn't planning on driving or doing anything risky, so I figured it would do for now. The next morning, I was trying to keep my thoughts at bay when I overheard Toby talking to the kids. I dragged myself out of bed, pulling on my pants. Opting for aspirin instead of a pain pill, I swallowed two and resolved to start weaning myself off the meds. When I entered the kitchen, I was greeted by applause, light-hearted teasing from the kids. My family showed little sympathy for my recent struggles. They believed I drank beer because I wanted to, not because I needed to, and they weren't wrong. Terry poured me some hot coffee as I sat down with a sigh. The kids scattered quickly, sensing that Toby and I needed to talk. "We've got a bit of a situation, John," Toby began. I raised an eyebrow, reluctant to dive into another problem. "All right, Toby, hit me with it. What's the issue now?" He hesitated briefly. Saturday morning, the guards found Dirk Franklin in the jail laundry room. Someone had beaten him to a pulp. Broken ribs, a smashed face, internal injuries. They had to send him to Allentown for treatment. "Doesn't happen often, huh?" I muttered, taking a cautious sip of my too hot coffee. "No, it doesn't," Toby admitted. "And it gets worse." I set my mug down, bracing for more. Dirk didn't take long to irritate his new neighbors. Toby continued. "The guards think it might have been his two former thugs. They weren't too happy about him rolling over on them to reduce his sentence." I couldn't help but smirk. "We can't prove they did it," Toby said, noting my expression. "And honestly, no one's eager to dig too deep into it. But there's a bigger problem." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "Last night, Dirk vanished from the hospital in Allentown. One of the guards was supposed to be watching him, but somehow he slipped away. No one knows how or when. He wasn't in great shape, so they didn't think he could leave on his own. But it looks like they were wrong." My grin faded. I never finished my coffee. I just stood up and poured it down the sink. Toby sat quietly, and I stared out the kitchen window. There wasn't much of a view, just the brick facade of the neighboring store. It didn't matter what I was looking at. I had never felt threatened by Dirk, but the idea of him walking around freely disturbed me. After a moment, I heard my brother-in-law get up from his chair. "John, I'll keep you updated on what's happening. If I find out anything, I'll let you know." I didn't respond, still lost in thought, eyes fixed on the brick wall outside. Then I heard the back door shut. "Daddy, do you want me to make you some fried eggs?" "That'd be great, Terry. Let me clean up first." That same day, I called Sarah. She hadn't heard from Noreen and had no idea where she was. I couldn't decide if that was good news or bad news. Life was slowly starting to improve. My wounds were healing quickly. I found a job at a small company in Tamika with an easy commute. The kids adjusted well to the new situation. We started spending more time with Elizabeth and her son. Brian and the other kids seemed to be getting along better, and I noticed Terry glance at him a few times. Although most of my time was spent with Elizabeth at social events and family gatherings, we also started having some celebratory dinners and going out to the movies every now and then. Occasionally, I asked Toby to pick up a couple of packs of cigarettes for the guys who'd beaten me up. There was never much discussion between us, but there was a silent understanding. Toby said they seemed to know exactly what I was doing. If it worked out the way I hoped, it would be worth the money spent. Cigarettes weren't cheap, but it didn't matter. Sarah and I never heard from Noreen again. Was she back with Dirk or somewhere else? Then one day, two of my enemies were released from custody. They disappeared without a trace. 3 months passed before I heard anything again. I was notified that my divorce was final, and I had been granted custody of Brian and S. Terry was no longer considered a minor. She was now attending dental school and reading. During all of this, Elizabeth and I began spending more time together. Yet, despite the growing connection, I couldn't shake the nagging thought that somewhere out there, Dirk Franklin was lurking. Did he still hold a grudge? Or had he truly stepped away from the game? I would never know for sure, and the uncertainty bothered me constantly. I took a job with a small independent auto insurance agency in Pottsville. 6 months later, Elizabeth and I were quietly married. The only condition she had was that she wanted to keep her last name, Vargas. She had her reasons, and I couldn't fault her for that. It wasn't long before Elizabeth learned that Noreen was working and living at the Salvation Army in downtown Philadelphia. We never saw her again, but she started sending birthday cards to the children. Soon, I started receiving cards as well. On Flag Day, Veterans Day, Tree Planting Day, they all had the same message. Thinking of you, DF. At first, I threw them away, but as they continued to arrive from various places along the East Coast, I became increasingly concerned. Dirk Franklin was like a cockroach that I couldn't seem to get rid of. Elizabeth did her best to reassure me, but I still felt vulnerable. Then, about 2 weeks before Christmas, I received a card that was more ominous than the others. It read, "I have a special gift for you. See you soon. DF." I couldn't shake the worry that Dirk wanted to hurt one of the children, but I couldn't be sure. I found myself constantly worrying about Elizabeth and the kids. Though Dirk was supposed to be out of my life, his presence still loomed, causing me trouble. All I could do was wait and be ready for him to show up. 2 days before Christmas, I received a card that seemed like a simple holiday greeting. But when I opened it, I found a clipping from the Baltimore Sun. The article reported that the body of a man identified as Dirk Franklin had been found in a burned-out car near a brickyard in Glengarry. The police couldn't determine the cause of death due to the condition of the body, but the note simply read, "Thanks for the cigarettes.